Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I will be discussing thrillers with the worst plot twists. The worst plot twists in thrillers that I have personally read. Now, I believe a few months ago, I did the exact opposite about this, where I talked about thrillers with the best plot twists. So I'll link that down below. Go check that out for some awesome thrillers with some awesome plot twists, at least in my humble opinion. This video is going to be the exact opposite. Thrillers with the worst plot twists I have ever read. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the list. So this isn't going to be in any kind of order, but all of these books that I'm going to mention here do have terrible plot twists, in my opinion. The first one, I wouldn't really say is egregious, but it's just very different from all of the books that she's written in her lifetime, I would say. And the first one I'll mention is Endless Nights by Agatha Christie. Now, mainly my love for Agatha Christie, because I've read a ton of her books, I love her Hercule Poirot books. I do like a couple of Miss Marples, and a few of her standalones are also very good, but particularly Hercule Poirot books are amazing. Endless Night is one of her standalones, and sometimes they're great, like And Then There Were None is obviously a classic for a reason. But Endless Night is kind of one that I'd heard either people say that they love or that they hated. For me, I was kind of lukewarm. It's very different. It's kind of more, I don't know how to describe it, more contemporary, where you're just following this couple and not really much happens in the book, but there is a twist, like a big surprise. I just didn't really find it that compelling. Now, I can't remember if I was able to guess it. Usually with Agatha Christie, sometimes I either guess it like dead on, or I'm just completely wrong and I'm thrown away with it. But this one is very foggy, but I remember just getting to that reveal and not really enjoying it. And it's just very different from a lot of her typical mystery thriller books, where like you're presented with basically a murder and then you have like a detective trying to solve it. Like that's her sweet spot for me. This one was just very different. I recommend it for Agatha Christie fans just because there's a good chance you might like it, but there also might be a chance, like with me, where it's just one of my least favorites and least compelling by her. So this twist just was not my favorite. Also, just in general for this video, I will not be spoiling any of the twists, so I won't be spoiling anything. Kind of in that same vein of like books that I didn't really hate, but I really didn't like the twist that much, is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Now, her other two books, Gone Girl, absolutely loved. That was one of the first thrillers that I'd ever read, and I did not see that twist coming, and it really worked for me. Her other book, Dark Places, also really worked for me. I thought that had some good reveals and just great characters in general. Sharp Objects, I gave it 3 stars. Hands down, my least favorite of her novels. And this one suffered because not only did I really like the story and I didn't really find the characters that compelling, I was also able to guess the twist very early on. So the rest of the story just wasn't that compelling because everything that I was reading was just like, oh, yep, that kind of confirms it. Oh, that also confirms it. So it just wasn't a fun experience like her other 2 novels were. Sharp Objects, definitely my least favorite, in the twist, not necessarily a bad twist, and maybe I would have liked it more if I didn't see it coming. But for me, I did see it coming, and it just wasn't that compelling. Another book in that similar vein where, like, the twist was just painfully obvious from, like, the very first few chapters, and you get to it, and you're just like, yeah, I saw it coming from a mile away, would be The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. Now, B.A. Paris is definitely more of a one-hit wonder author for me. I loved Behind Closed Doors, and that thriller didn't really rely on so much of a twist. It's one of those thrillers where like you go into it already knowing what's happening. The fun of it is seeing how the character is going to get out of her situation. But with a lot of her other books, they kind of stem more from having a big twist. And The Breakdown is like that, except the twist which I obviously won't spoil, is just painfully obvious. Like the whole time you're like, yeah, this is what's going on. I'm fully aware of what's going on. And then you get to the twist and the author like acts like it's supposed to be this mind-blowing experience, but I'm like, I know already. I have known. What do you want from me? You know? So this is one of the books that kind of took B.A. Pierce off my radar because nothing has been as great as Behind Closed Doors. Her other books, like The Therapist, I also read, which I don't remember anything about that book. But this one just really bugged me because I knew what was happening the whole time. So I was just not engaged with the story because I'm like, I get it. I know what's happening. Yeah. And the whole time I was hoping for it to be something else because I'm like, it can't be this because it's just too obvious. But it was the whole time. So yeah, that one was very frustrating if you couldn't tell. Another reveal that was also just painfully obvious that I was kind of hoping for more, but it just didn't really happen, was The Maidens. Now, this author also wrote a thriller that I was able to guess what the twist was, but I actually liked it a lot, which was The Silent Patient. Even though I kind of had guessed at least like half of the twist. I wasn't like, I knew what the twist was, but I didn't really know how it made sense. I was still able to guess it and have a really good time with The Silent Patient. But with The Maidens, again, I was able to guess it, but I wasn't enjoying my time with the book, and I didn't really like the way that it came about. Again, it was kind of that way where like, okay, I think this is what's going on, but I'm not quite sure how it makes sense. But the way that the author revealed it still didn't really make that much sense, and it was still just painfully obvious what was going on the whole time. So yeah, I enjoyed The Silent Patient, but The Maidens was a huge step down in my opinion, and I really did not like the twist, didn't like how it was revealed, and yeah, just very subpar compared to The Silent Patient. There's also books that are kind of ruined by the twist, where like maybe the book starts out good, but then you get the reveal, and you're just like, it's just a very deflating feeling where you're like, the rest of the book was so good, but then the twist kind of ruins it. One of those examples is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Now, I've loved a lot of Riley Sager books, and a lot of his books, I will say most of his books, are pretty dependent on the twist and different reveals you get throughout the story. Like House Across the Lake, a lot of people hate that twist, but I love it. This one, again, this one, like it started out so good, and like 80% of the book, I'm thinking like, oh, this might be a new favorite Riley Sager book. Like this might be 5-star material because I loved the atmosphere that he created. I loved the characters. I loved kind of the slow reveal of information we were getting. And I was hoping that it was going to be one thing. I had one thing in mind. I'm like, oh, if it goes down this route, it's going to be really interesting. But then you get the reveal of what's going on. And I'm just like, really? This is what's going on? This is what we're deciding to do? So it really just threw a wrench in my plan. And I was just like, man, the book started off so good and the twist is just so dumb. I really did not like it. So I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars because it was mostly good up until that point. And Riley Sager is definitely hit or miss. Sometimes the reveals are great, sometimes they're not so good, but his books are fun because of that. But Lock Every Door, just bad twist in my opinion. Another book that again started out really well, but kind of was slowly descending into bad book territory with kind of every reveal that we got. It wasn't like one main twist, although there is one that was bad, but like just the further you got onto the story, you know what, let's just say what it is first. It's called Unmissing by Minka Kent. And this one, again, starts out very well with a really interesting premise, but the more reveals we get, it just gets worse and worse the further you get into the story until you get to the very end where you kind of realize like how everything makes sense and how stupid everything is. Man, this book, again, very promising start, but just kind of slowly descending into madness with this book. Because after every reveal, like it starts out so good with an interesting premise, but then like you slowly get breadcrumbs as to what's happening, and you're like, okay, that's kind of weird. This isn't how I wanted it to go. And then you get to the ending, you're just like, oh, this sucks actually. But yeah, this book just was not good for a lot of reasons. Another book that was just completely ruined by the twist because the twist was so dumb and did not make any lick of sense. And the author basically just, this book is very frustrating. It's Never Lie by Frida McFadden. This is one of those books where, like, I was reading it. It's one of her standalones because I loved the Housemaid series. Like, the first two books are really good. I still need to read the third book. But her standalones, this was my first standalone I'd read by her. And man, I was put off by this book because it starts out decent enough where you got this couple like going into this house that might be potentially haunted. Some weird stuff are happening. Very typical. Like, I was reading this book and most of the way through, I'm like, I'm not really loving this, but I'm having a decent enough time. It'll probably be like 3 stars, maybe 3.5 if the ending is good. But good Lord, the twist comes about and it just obliterates any goodness about this book because it's so stupid. And it's baffling because this book has so many positive reviews on Goodreads that I'm just like, how are people enjoying this? And yeah, Never Lie, it really put me off. And I'm glad that I was able to read another standalone by Frida McFadden that was actually decent. I didn't love it, but it was decent. But good Lord, Never Lie was just so bad that I was convinced, like, oh, she's actually not that good. But hopefully this is kind of like just, a random unicorn event where, like, this book was just awful. And hopefully the rest of her books are good. But good God, this book sucked. This ending sucked. Just one of the worst thrillers I've ever read, and the twist is definitely why. Also, speaking of books that started out so well and just plateaued off a cliff, and then you get to the ending reveal, and it's just god awful, would be Good Girls Don't Die. I think by Christina Henry. I'll edit that in if it's not true, but I think it's Christina Henry. This book just it's so frustrating because this book is kind of split into 3 parts. Well, 4 parts, but the 3 parts are from points of views of different women, and they all have different stories. Part 1 was amazing, and I kind of wish the whole book would have been that. Like, part 1, that story was amazing. 5 stars. Like, if I'm just basing it off of that story alone. And then the second story was pretty good, although kind of stereotypical. It was decent. It was more like a 4-star story. And then the third story, my least favorite of the bunch, it just wasn't that compelling. And I had read, it just wasn't done as good as like other stories of that caliber. So it kind of just kept getting worse and worse. Like, part 1 was amazing. Part 2 was pretty good. Part 3 was meh. And then part 4 is kind of like the short, like, few chapters and epilogue of like how they all connect and what is going on. And it was one of the worst things I've ever read, people. Just the ending twist of like what is going on was just so baffling how stupid it was. And it's hard to rate a book like this because, like I mentioned, started out amazing. Part 1 was amazing. And then it just kept getting worse and worse until you get to the ending of this book. And it just shits the bed. Like, so much. One of the worst twists and endings to a thriller and book in general that I've ever read. So Good Girls Don't Die. Book is just frustrating if you couldn't tell. And then we get to quite possibly one of the worst endings to a thriller that I've ever read, which would be Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. And this one was surprising because I had read a couple of Alice Feeney books before this. His and Hers I thought was okay, like a 3.5 star book. But then Daisy Darker, absolutely loved. One of my favorite thrillers, kind of 4.5, possibly 5-star territory. Loved the twist in that book. I believe that was in my favorite twist of all time because that book was just amazing and the reveal was top notch. This book was not that. This book, it had a pretty interesting premise, and throughout the book I was kind of enjoying myself and I was waiting to see what was going to happen. It's one of those things where, like, I didn't really have like a prediction of what was going on, but then you get to the last few chapters and you realize what is going on, and it just opens up a can of worms the size of Texas because this book, the twist is so stupid. And I'm glad that a lot of people that I buddy read the book with, because I think this was our February pick for Thrill, Chill, or Kill. a lot of people that read the book felt similarly to each other, that the twist was just stupid. And if you take the time to think about it for even like 20 seconds, you'll realize that it just doesn't make any sense, and that it's the messaging of the twist is just so stupid. And of course, I can't talk spoilers, but if you want to see my spoiler filled rant review, you can watch it right here. I'll link it down below. But it's just one of the worst books I've ever read, and it's mainly because of the ending. Like I said, it didn't start out that bad. Like, I was interested throughout, but that reveal was just so asinine and stupid. So yeah, Beautiful Ugly, definitely deserving to be on this list. Might be my number one spot. The last few books I have to mention, however, it's not just one book. It's a lot of collective books by one author. And granted, I haven't read these books in quite a long time. I started reading this author in college. So over a decade ago, I started reading these books. And while some of them were really good and some of them I do remember fondly, a lot of this author's catalog is just filled with dumb plot twists. And that would, of course, be Dean Koontz. And I think I'm just going to display a few books here and there that I remember not liking, and I remember the twists being very stupid. Now, a lot of his books are quite memorable and quite good, but it was definitely not a tale of two halves, but like, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, some of his books were really great, and some of his books, you know, like these that I'm showing, just had really dumb twists. And again, a lot of them, like Dean Koontz always has really interesting premises. My problem with him is that his characters are kind of lackluster, and a lot of the times the twists can either make or break the book. And with these books that I'm playing here, they're just not good. So just Dean Koontz in general, just a lot of the times has bad plot twists. All right, so those are some of the worst plot twists in thrillers that I have personally read. And these are, of course, all subjective. Some of y'all might love the plot twist in these books. So definitely comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of my picks here. And what are your picks for the worst plot twist in thrillers? And please, if you're going to go into spoilers, you know, type your comment and then, you know, ... leave it at the bottom so that people don't get spoiled for any of these twists. Because even if they're bad twists, it's still fun to get people's honest reactions to them. So I'd love for people to read these books and feel the same way about them while experiencing them honestly. So please don't spoil anybody. So yeah, please, you know, be careful with spoilers in the comments. But yeah, comment down below your worst plot twist in thrillers, and we'll chat about it. And like I mentioned, link down below for the best plot twist in thrillers. Highly recommend those books. These books in this video, not so much. And of course, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay subscribed for more content. I try to post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And tomorrow, y'all, for Off Topic Thursday, third Thursday of every month will be Off Topic Thursday. I will be discussing my top 10 drummers of all time. And yeah, stay tuned for that tomorrow. And of course, link down below is the Bookish Drummer Discord, where we've got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs happening all the damn time. Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.